I mentioned in the last segment I was talking with Julaine about the shooting at FRC. That was 2012, so it was 10 years ago, not 12 years ago. But anyway, last week, the City Council of Haven, Kansas, voted to order the police department of Haven, to remove from police vehicles decals with the phrase, "In God We Trust." Now, this is something that police departments across the country have been doing over the last decade. Now, it's something that was recently done in Haven, but now the police are told they have until, the chief was told, he has until May 16th to remove the decals. Now, what's going on? Well, with me now to talk about this is Pastor Chris Powell, senior pastor of New Haven Baptist Church in Haven, Kansas. Pastor Chris, welcome to Washington Watch. Pastor, can you hear us?
I can't seem to hear anything.
Okay, let me talk louder.
It's very very
all right,
faint.
We're gonna get you on by phone. Then we're gonna connect with you by phone because I'm gonna get Pastor Chris's take on what is unfolding there. Because as I mentioned, there's probably 300 different agencies across law enforcement agencies across the nation that have put these decals on their vehicles over the last decade. I mean, this is the national motto, "In God We Trust." And here in New Haven, or Haven rather, I'm sorry I said New Haven earlier, but it's Haven, it's New Haven Baptist Church. But the Haven City Council said that this was an issue of separation church and state. But this is the nation's motto, and as I said, almost 300 other agencies across the country have this. So how can it be a problem there? Well, I think we have Pastor Chris back on. Pastor Chris, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, give us some explanation as to what's happening, what led to this vote of removing "In God We Trust" from the police vehicles.
Yeah, well, I think it was a decision that certainly surprised a lot of people and quite frankly was done very rapidly, and a lot of people, it took them a little time to kind of process the decision that had been made. I don't think that this decision reflects our community as a whole, but unfortunately, I've learned that part of the issue was about only 15% of our people voted in our last election, and so it's tough to get a fair representation of how the people of the community truly feel when voting numbers are so low. It seems to me that there's a small group that happened to just be in the right position who made a decision and kind of pushed that decision through. And it seems to me that there's a large portion of our community that are prepared to do something about that.
So are you basing that on reactions that you've seen since the council made this decision?
Yes, there has been a large presence on social media, of course, in a community our size. I've talked and had conversations with several people who have told me that they plan to be at the next city council meeting. Whether they're approaching it more from a political angle or a spiritual angle, there are people all across that spectrum who have certainly taken exception to that and certainly don't appreciate the perception that the community of Haven, doesn't want God talked about or discussed or included. I would feel that was very much not the case for our community.
Pastor Chris, that's what caught my attention because I grew up in a small town in Oklahoma, and I know what these small towns are like. I mean, they're God and country. I mean, they're all about the things that really made this nation great. And to see something that is, as I said, so prominent across the country, these stickers on police cars that say "In God We Trust," the national motto, for a council to say those had to be removed just seems so far outside the norm.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I think a lot of people were caught off guard by that, and again, especially from a political angle, of course, from a spiritual side, and from a church, from a pastor's perspective. When you look at things like church attendance, even in smaller communities where God is thought much more of, certainly than in other parts of the country, you can kind of see those things headed in that direction with the number of people involved in a local church or being a part of them on some level. And so a lot of people were caught off guard, and it did catch me off guard to a certain degree. But at the same time, I think in our country we can kind of see that when the degradation of the church and the family unit begins to happen, that things like this become more prominent even in places you wouldn't expect.
So very quickly, we're up against a break, Pastor Chris, but could this not be a catalytic moment, one of those catalysts that prompts people to get more involved, speaking out, voting?
I absolutely believe that this will be one of those moments that people clearly understand that their voice in their community matters to be reflected. And I absolutely, there's already been discussions about when elections will occur, when city council seats will be available. And I absolutely could see, and I think we will see, a much bigger group of people interested in that sort of thing.
Well, Pastor Chris Powell, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for serving there in Haven and for joining us today here on Washington Watch. We're going to be tracking this very closely, so I'm sure we'll talk to you again.
All right. Thank you, sir.
And folks, I know we've got a lot of listeners there in that area because we blanket the state of Kansas. And so, if you live in the area, and don't think that this would be contained. This is the kind of stuff that spreads like a cancer. I have all the contact information for the Haven City Council at tonyperkins.com. And it'd be easier to get it there than me to give it out to you on the air. So go to tonyperkins.com and you can get that contact information.